podcast. Josh Marlowe's your host as always. Want to welcome in my co-host, Anthony Pagnotta. Buddy, I hope you had a good Christmas break. Was Santa Claus good to you?
Yeah, pretty good Christmas break for sure. Got some more Tar Heel gear and a few other gifts, but yeah, overall a good time to sort of rest and recuperate. Something that we really hope the Tar Heels were able to do as well, following last weekend's loss to Kentucky.
Yeah, they were off. They played last Saturday, that 80-72 defeat, a game where, I thought it was pretty plain and simple. Other than you look at the stats, I thought Carolina just didn't meet Kentucky's competitiveness, and I thought Kentucky was more tougher, which is very disappointing. When you think about this program and what they pride themselves on. But like you said, they were off the players went home that night, and they returned back on the 27th, so yesterday. So the players had a nice little break, which I'm sure they liked because Roy Williams made it well known in his presser after the Kentucky loss. Christmas at the Williamses wasn't going to be pleasant because he was pissed off at his team, and I'm pretty certain these last few practices haven't been really fun for the guys. So I bet they're looking forward to get back on the court tomorrow against Davidson. And we're going to go ahead and jump right into this preview. This is going to be a quick podcast because it's late, and they've been off for a week, not a whole lot to talk about. So we're going to pick our winner, and then the guy that we'll be talking about after the game. I'll let you go first tonight, and this part of the preview.
Got to change it up to change up the luck a little bit. I like it. Yeah, I think ultimately, I feel like this team will come out. I don't know how energized. I think it might be a little bit of a slow start, but I feel like they can turn it in the right direction. And I gotta believe that they're gonna come out and play a good game. I would say, I would say 18-point victory. I'd say something around I think we get up into the high 90s, maybe the 100 mark. But I'll go 98-80, the final score. How about that? And the guy that I'll say that we'll be talking about, I feel like this is. I'll go bold here. I feel like this is the game where Kenny Williams gets it on track a little bit and has a solid game. I don't know if he'll lead the team in scoring. I don't know if he'll lead them in assist. I do think he'll play a lot better defensively. I feel like he will hit a couple of shots, and I think maybe he'll instill just a little bit of confidence back within this fan base in him, and maybe in himself going forward, which will be huge for conference play.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I think Carolina wins. I don't know if they get in the 98. My number is, look, you get the game into the 80s, I think you got them where you want them. Davidson only averages 76.5 points a game, so they're not built to get up in that type of number. So if you get in the 80s, I'll be pretty confident. And I'm actually going to agree with you on the player. I think this is the type of game, noon tip-off, probably a sleepy crowd. You don't know if the team's going to be mentally into the game, but Kenny Williams is a senior. He's always ready to play mentally and physically. And this might be the day where, a couple of threes go down, he gets a couple of charges drawn on the defensive end, and he starts getting back into the kind of player we know he can be and expect him to be, and leads Carolina to a solid victory to close out 2018.
Sounds good, yeah. I would definitely take that.
Yeah, so I know I told you we weren't going to have a discussion topic. I changed my mind, and we're going to discuss something really quick. I know your answer, but I feel like this is just something that's got to be talked about because it's still getting talked about from fans to locals, beat writers to national guys.
Okay.
And Roy Williams addressed this after the Kentucky game, where it was this notion that he's holding Nassir Little back from the kind of player he was recruited as, was thought to be, expected to be, and one day will be. And so I guess my question to you is do you think the problems with Nassir Little is Roy Williams' fault, Nassir Little's fault, or it's nobody's fault? It's just an 18-year-old kid who's learning how to play basketball at a higher level than he was playing at in high school.
Why would you give me that third option? Because you know what my answer is going to be. I mean, to me, it's pretty obvious. I mean, look, he's having a little bit of trouble with the learning curve, but that's part of being 18 years old, part of being a basketball player. I mean, clearly the offense at his high school was built around him, and he knew that. At this level, it's a little bit different for him, and I think that there's a bit of a shock factor going on with him. You saw it a little bit earlier in the season with a couple of the turnovers, but there were some games where he was able to kind of mask that and play pretty well. I think this last little stretch here, though, has kind of shown it. Look, I think we all were expecting that he would step up and play well in the Gonzaga game. To be really honest with you, he didn't play all that well. And then in the game against Kentucky, I mean, to me, that's got to be his worst game to date. I mean, is that just me, or you feel the same way?
Yeah, no, I kind of thought the same thing, and I'll go ahead and answer. Like, I'm
right.
not going to, look, we all know how I feel about Roy Williams, so for me to go in here and to blame him would just be a contradiction of my beliefs of the man and the kind of coach he is. And I don't think it's all Nassir Little's fault that he's not as good as we thought it's going to be. He just hasn't transitioned as easily as I think he thought.
Right.
And, this is why I thought early on in the year, if things didn't go well, he could come back to Carolina because he's not the kind of player we thought he could be. But he also mentioned it in an article written about it, that he came here because he wanted to get coached and taught how to play the game at the level he wants to get to.
Right.
And I tweeted this out during the Kentucky game, and we discussed it. He gets in the game and he goes to the basket soft, or he goes to the basket and then he fades away and throws up some stupid shot, and that's not Roy Williams' fault. Roy ain't telling him, hey, go in there and then do something that you never did in high school and do something that I watched you and I recruited you. That's not. I just don't think he's got it in his head. And we all know sports is more mental than it is physical.
Right.
I don't think right now he's got it in his head that he's better than the people he's going up against. And he's not confident that he's stronger and just a more gifted athlete than the defender. Because if we're being honest, there hasn't been a single player on the floor in the 11 games we've played at that should match his physical abilities. There just shouldn't be. But this is part of him growing and learning how to play the game, I guess, properly, because in high school and AAU ball, the fundamentals and all that of basketball, that stuff's been lost.
Right.
And these kids aren't getting taught that. Well, he's getting taught that now, and he's struggling to adapt. So I'm tired of the notion that Roy can't coach, 5 stars, and he's holding back talent, because and Roy said it himself, if that was the case, then why the hell was Kobe White our starting point guard and not Seventh Woods? Because you can make the argument Seventh Woods has done enough in the backup role to justify him starting, because he ain't turning the ball over like Kobe White is. You know what I'm saying?
No, that's a true statement. That is definitely true. He's held on to the ball a lot better than Kobe has. But yeah, Kobe is the better scorer and is a guy that Roy thinks right now has shown him enough to start and play starter minutes. Again, starting, we've been over this before on this podcast multiple times. Just because you don't start a game doesn't mean that you're not a key part of this team. He plays 20 minutes a game, around the same that Garrison Brooks does. Actually, if you look at the exact averages, he plays just a little bit more than Garrison Brooks plays. So, yeah, you're right. The notion that he doesn't play ever I mean, I think people literally think he plays about 6 to 7 minutes a game. No, he plays almost a full half of basketball every time he's out on the court. So, yeah, I don't see why you guys think that, we're missing out on something here. He's been out there enough, and to be really honest with you, he just hasn't been all that great. Now, I like the point that you brought up, and that's that, he just maybe there's something going on mentally. One of the things that I think a lot of people probably don't realize is that there is a lot of pressure on him where he's at and with the team that sits just 8 miles down the road. You hear about these guys every single day of your life. You hear about them every time you're on the basketball court, and they're not playing for another week. We see them in a promo in the middle of our game for a game that is happening in next year. I mean, I swear to God, I'm pretty sure I've seen one for next year. I mean, it is ridiculous the amount of coverage that they get. And when you're seeing guys like that on the news over and over again, and you're saying, okay, well, these guys are probably the top 3 in the NBA draft, I think maybe he's putting a little bit of pressure on himself to step his own game up and try to be as dominant as these guys are. And look, you don't have to be as dominant as those guys are. I mean, if you're not better than Zion Williamson, look, I don't think that anybody is really going to get that angry about that. What matters is you playing your best basketball. And right now, I'm with you. I just don't think that's happening. But again, he is an 18-year-old kid. It's not that easy to just say, hey, snap out of it. It doesn't work like that. Especially in basketball. When you are struggling to shoot the basketball, which he has done, it's really hard to snap out of it. It's not, just snap my finger and all of a sudden I'm going to be back to playing the way I played in high school. It's really not that easy. And I think eventually it'll come to him. And, again, we've seen it with a few players before. Harrison Barnes was not the greatest early on in his career. You mentioned Marcus Page, which is a guy that I think he could end up being like in the long run, as a guy that, was brought in, thought pretty highly of, really didn't play all that great as a freshman, but kind of picked it up towards the end of conference play and then really hit it hard when it came to the conference tournament and tournament play. I think that's kind of what we could be looking at here with Nassir Little, and to me, I have no problem with that. I'm going to be real honest with you. I thought you were crazy earlier in the year when you said that Nassir Little could return to school. And I still don't know how realistic that actually is, to be real honest with you, just because of where he's still projected in a lot of these drafts. It's going to be really, really hard if you are projected to go top 10 to tell the NBA now. Because that's a lot of money that you're leaving on the table. But when we're talking about from a performance standpoint, do I think that there's a chance that he could return if I was just looking at him film-wise? I would say yes, because I don't think that he's quite where he wants to be at this point.
Yeah, you made a good point about, maybe the light switch turns on for him in the ACC tournament and in March Madness. The thing is, like in college basketball, that's different from like college football. Is like unless college football, unless your teams are playing the New Year's Six bowl games, your draft stock isn't going to rise playing in the Belt Bowl, most likely. But if Nassir turns it on in the ACC tournament, which is the premier, conference tournament in college basketball,
right,
and then it's an integral part of a team that, makes the Final Four or makes a run in the tournament, and he's playing to the level that he's playing of, then a draft stock that is very slowly going to plummet just because the numbers aren't there,
right,
could all of a sudden go right back up, because when the games matter most, his level of play is picked up. And that's something that we'll keep an eye on when we get closer to that time of the season, and of course draft talk and his decision. But when I made that comment early on, this was just me coming from a guy who sees a guy who doesn't have a fluid jump shot, and against Wofford and Elon and St. Francis and all these other guys, was watching a guy not taking advantage of his physical ability playing against inferior competition. And that worries me because next Saturday when they go to Pittsburgh, now granted, Pittsburgh don't have the type of level of athlete Carolina has, but that's still better than just about outside of Kentucky, Gonzaga, and your two teams in Las Vegas in terms of talent. So that's what I'm looking forward to seeing him in ACC play. Maybe the bigger competition brings the best out of him, and some players that does. But
right.
Like I said, I stand by it on today that if he announced after the season that he was coming back, I wouldn't be surprised because his game is not, in my opinion, NBA ready. So, is there anything else you want to touch on this topic of Nassir Little's early season struggle?
I don't understand why we even label this as a discussion topic. This should literally be a weekly update on Nassir Little's status amongst national writers. We should literally just do that each week because we've done this how many weeks in a row now?
This will be our part of the podcast that mirrors your part of your podcast, where for how many ever straight weeks we talked about Larry Fedora's job security in Chapel Hill.
I think we're still doing updates on that. I think, no lie, there will be an update on the Heel Tough Blog podcast on Larry's new puppy that he received for Christmas. This is a real thing, by the way, too. But yes, this is the level that the Nassir Little talk has come to. Literally, after every single game, there is a new article, there is a new question, there is something that is circulating around the national media asking, why is this kid not playing? I don't understand. Are they not watching these games? Are they not, do they have no connections in the Carolina community to have these people sit down and tell them, to be frankly honest with you, he has not played all that well. And this shouldn't really shock anybody that much. But yeah, we keep having these conversations. So I think, yes, we might have to have the Nassir Little lineup update part of the podcast each week.
Okay. I'll work on getting a sponsor to sponsor this segment of the show, because I'm with you. After every game, there's some NBA scout, and I follow a lot of them that are writing about his lackluster performance and either blaming, Roy Williams or, they're blaming somebody sometimes other than Nassir Little. So definitely, for the listeners, keep your ears open for this, because from now until March, we will talk about this every week. As we shut down this Davidson preview, I'd like to encourage you guys, if you would, to check out my blog. I wrote the preview of today's game or tomorrow's game up. You can find that on Facebook and Twitter. Of course, I'll have a recap after tomorrow's game, and as the season progresses, some other fun topics we'll be writing about. You can always find this podcast. I'll have it on Facebook and Twitter. We are on iTunes and Spotify. Waiting to hear back from some other people. You can, of course, always subscribe to it through Spreaker. That's the site that we use to record this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I want to thank Anthony for joining me. Did a fantastic job after I gave him some time off to spend with his family and enjoy Christmas. I want to thank you guys for listening. Go Tar Heels.